Hi, welcome to Kimmel Bay Church Vlogs. Today we're continuing with our series, Reading Between the Lines, by Glenn Scrivener. And the verses that I'm looking at today are from Leviticus chapter 13, verses 45 to 46, and also Mark 1 to 40. And the title of today's vlog is Unclean, Unclean. Obviously, this is looking at leprosy, but one of the things that I thought when I was reading through this was just about a time more recent to all of us where people were treated in a similar way, that if you had a certain illness, you had to stay in your own home. You couldn't mix with people. In fact, we couldn't mix with people just in case somebody may have had that illness. Obviously, I'm talking about COVID pandemic, and when people who had COVID had to stay in their own home, and even if they had symptoms, they'd have to stay in their own home until they had a test that told them that they were clear. And today, looking at Leviticus and leprosy, I can see some similarities, but actually there's some quite differences as well. When we look at the Old Testament and leprosy held a lot of social and even spiritual significance. As we've seen in the Old Testament law, it was a dramatization of deeper truths. As a picture of gospel reality, quite a bit about the walls that are infected by mildew is mentioned. Leviticus 14:35 mentions it. Of course, the whole world is infected with sin and decay, but the law draws our attention to the mildew on the walls, the sign of rot. It's the same with the skin disease. Leviticus speaks about skin disease, not because the skin is more important than the rest of us, but rather the leper was unclean, with unclean skin, reminds us of ourselves, of our unclean hearts. And according to the law, this is the position of the unclean. Anyone with such a defiling disease must wear torn clothes. Let their hair be unkempt, cover their lower part of their face, and cry out, "Unclean, unclean." As long as they have the disease, they remain unclean. They must live alone. They must live outside the camp. And that's from Leviticus 13:45 to 46. As we hear of the leper's plight, we're being told of our own condition. Therefore, we have a real interest in asking, how can the leper be cleansed? Leviticus 14 tells us, first, the priest goes outside the camp. Leviticus 14 verse 2. Here is the beginning of it all. The priest would meet the poor wretch in his wretchedness. Secondly, there must be blood. One bird is sacrificed, the other is sprinkled by the blood of the first bird, then released. Leviticus 14:4-7. The leper is being taught that his freedom costs the blood of another. Thirdly, the leper goes away for a week and shaves off every hair on his body. He returns on the day 8, looking like a newborn baby. In a deep sense, he is born again. This is the picture of our own spiritual cleansing. Christ meets us in our depravity. He dies for us, cleanses us with his blood, and in his resurrection, he raises us to new life. That's why Jesus met lepers with compassion, with the compassion that he did in Mark 1:40-42. When everyone else ran from lepers, fearing that they'd be infected, Jesus moved towards him. He laid his hands on him. He treated him with compassion. He treated them with compassion. He healed them. How amazing is that to see? When everyone else is running away, Jesus runs towards. On the cross, he caught the fatal disease called sin. In his resurrection, he shared his righteous life. He is the answer to our uncleanliness. Jesus meets each one of us in our sin, just as he met those lepers when they were in their infected state. But Jesus didn't stand back. He didn't put a plastic barrier in between. He went forward. He knelt down. He healed the lepers. He died on a cross for us. And then he rose again and he gave us new life. So today, if you're feeling unclean, what should you do? Run to Christ, our priest, our sacrificer, and say, Lord, if you are willing, make me clean. And here's what he will say: I am willing, be clean. Have a good week, everyone. God bless.